Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Change podcast where we introduce you to people and ideas shaping the MENA region. Today we'll be talking about the topic of digital transformation, but with a slightly different angle because my guest today is Qasir Hussain, Digital Transformation Director at Petrofac. Qasir, welcome to the Change podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. How's your week so far?
It's been busy. Good busy though. So yeah, it's been good. How about yourself?
Good. Trying to stay busy. Lately, I've been talking to everyone, and whoever you talk to, it's usually busy. It's just a matter of which kind of busy are you.
Busy on WhatsApp.
Are you guys in the office now, or how does it work with you guys?
No, we're out of the office. So it's just for safety precautionary needs and rotationary of a few colleagues a couple of days a week. But been coping quite well.
What are your thoughts on the whole COVID situation? And we actually a different angle of that question. I think we all learned a lot of lessons from COVID. Yeah. And I think we had some time to rethink, our usual life. How do you find it? What did you learn?
Yeah, I learned quite a lot actually. I think firstly at a macro country level, I think it was quite interesting to see how different regions dealt with it. In the West, I think it was an inner fight between personal freedoms and the government trying to control the disease, and in the virus. And in the East, with their experience with SARS and MERS and these sort of things, I think they were well accustomed on what to do. I remember 6-7 years ago, I was flying into Malaysia, and they had the heat thermal cameras when you walked in. So they already had that experience.
That's a typical,
like South Korea has been pretty open since February, March. They've got the app, everyone's wearing the masks and everyone's, going about it because they've got that experience. And it's interesting to see how China and these countries came back pretty quickly. Whereas the West, it seems to be a bit of a continual struggle. And as a Brit, it is kind of weird seeing from abroad how we're dealing with it, and I don't know if we are dealing with it. It's from that perspective it's been interesting, and then I think from a technology digital perspective it's been interesting because everyone's got the energy, the impetus, the catalyst that we do need to change. So it's made jobs for people like myself a lot easier.
We just talked about a relevancy of all of the digital transformation roles today, and I think our lives became a lot easier now. We don't need to justify the investments that much anymore.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a good thing. But I also think it's something that that goodwill it shouldn't be abused as well. Like you do need to think about strategically how you approach digital transformation. If your CEO gives you 20 million and you just start doing some funky programs and don't fix your basics, you're asking for trouble.
No, 100%. So before we deep dive, and I will be talking a lot more about digital transformation and your background and your experience, but as a part of the Change podcast, where we, as we say, introduce people and ideas shaping the MENA region, we like to introduce our guests as individuals.
Sure.
So can you tell us a bit more about Qasir and how did you ended up in this region?
Ended up in the pit. It's a nice pit. So I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm born and bred in Skipton, which I will do a shout out for. Skipton was voted the best place to live in the UK.
Oh, really?
In the Times. I think it was 2013, and then recently we won the happiest place award as well. So
that's why you look so happy.
I'm happy because I've inherited those genes. So I grew up there, went to the local schools, and then early part of my career I spent in first actually as an accountant, and I was doing accountancy, doing the exams, and I realized it wasn't for me, and rather than persist with it, I actually left that. And then from there I joined British Telecom. Before after I did a master's as well, and then I joined British Telecom in the transformation team, and I learned a lot. It's a fantastic organization, and I report to a master black belt in Lean Six Sigma, as well as having the IT sort of learning. So early part of my training was there, and I really enjoyed it because we went across the organization. You're meeting different personalities, you're solving different problems. So I was doing that for a number of years, and Prior to that, I'd actually been abroad and I'd learned Arabic as well.
Wow.
So Arabic's not a first language. So I lived in Egypt, learned Arabic, and I'd always had the ambition to come to the Middle East and learn the language, practice the language. So in 2010, came to Dubai, started off contracting for Do, did a lot of good transformation work there with some great people, and then I was headhunted for another role in healthcare through a Mubadala entity with Cleveland Clinic, and that's where I really got into further deepen my skills in program and complex programs and delivery of that. And then the latter part was around digital transformation. And then for the past few years, I've been in oil and gas. But I think that the common theme across all of them is one of transformation. So digital transformation, the ambition, the desire is no different to what I started off my career as, with Lean Six Sigma. You're trying to ultimately improve that end-to-end journey. So yeah, I ended up here. Another personal fact, I'm a Liverpool fan, so we won the league, so I have to get that in there. So that makes me even happier. Although the Van Dijk injury is kind of put a downer on it. But yeah. So I love being here. I think it's a fantastic country, and we're very fortunate to have the level of quality of life and services that we experience here.
No, for sure. And so you've been around now for 2010, so around 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
10 years.
Yeah,
decade.
Decade, yeah. That's
out.
That's half of your life, right?
It is, yeah. I came here when I was 10. Yeah, no, I mean, like I've always said that as long as I'm learning and growing, I want to be here. And the day that stops, then I'll go home. Yorkshire's a beautiful part of the world. It's I go back home regularly, but yeah, for the foreseeable future, I'm certain.
And I think that's a great life motto. As long as you are learning, you're going to stay here, because I think there is a lot of people staying within the same boundaries and same organizations, not progressing really in their lives, and then getting into kind of a monotonous living, and then figuring that out when it's too late.
Yeah, Vuk, you're spot on. Like, look, in the world of work, we're spending 7-8 hours a day, if not more, every single day. And, if you go into a role and it's simply for the wrong reasons, after a certain point, given human nature, you're going to get fed up and then you're just going to be miserable. You can't be miserable at work and then come home and, suddenly be happy-go-lucky sort of thing.
Exactly.
So I believe, your job almost also models your personality as well.
For sure.
So as long as you're happy in what you do, you give it your best and you're learning. I think that is what life's about. And I carry that philosophy in anything I do, whether it's work or whether it's a personal goal. I mean, right now I'm trying to get my 5K run below 23 minutes. So I've been stuck on that goal for a while, but I'm going to get there. And
you mentioned me in the intro call that you're going for your triathlete as well.
I've done a couple triathlons, and because swimming I learned as an adult. Cycling I never cycled. As a kid, we used to play football, cricket, and a bit of boxing, and that was it. So I never had a bike. So I actually a few years ago bought a bike here, and I mean, to this day, if I'm riding a bike, if I take my hand off, there's a big probability I'll fall off. So, when I see these cyclists whizzing by with their hands up like this, I'm in envy of them. But I'll get there. So, I've done a few. I'm going more regularly, so hopefully I want to increase my distance. But in time, I'm not there yet. So sure. I'm always honest with myself. So, I'll get there eventually.
Well, I think with sport and working out in general, as we are getting older, obviously it's getting more difficult for us to continuously work out. But if you're working out for sake of just building up your muscle, you're never going to make it, because eventually you get bored. But if you work out for the sake of feeling good, that's when you hack the system, and then you're going to continue doing it because you simply feel good. And the side effect will be muscles and good shape, but it's going to be a side effect.
It's like you said, Vuk, about work. If you're not happy with what you're doing, right? I mean, look, I'd say to everyone here who's watching right now, if you've got a job, just be thankful and
exactly.
Get through this period. But like in the long term, think about is it right for me? And likewise with health. I do it. I love running, and cycling. To be honest with you, I did try and do 4 or 5 hours on a cycle. That's not me. So I didn't force myself through it. So I do my thinking strategically and absorbing the week on my long run. So every Friday or Saturday, I do like a 15 to 20k run.
Wow.
That's, and I really enjoy it.
Therapy.
Yeah, it's therapy. Honestly, it's the best therapy out there.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. Okay, that's a cool part of. I think we introduced you well now. I think that people have a better idea
Did
of
we
who
get
they're.
the Liverpool part in?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
We did. We're going to underline
That's
and put
for
the
the,
logo. Okay.
That's for the Man United
Production.
fans.
So today, so you hold the role of a digital transformation director for Petrofac.
That's right. Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit more about the role itself?
I mean, like in my role as a digital transformation leader.
All right.
My role across the organization is, you're bringing in new technologies that are there to essentially improve how we're performing today, from a cost perspective or an efficiency perspective. So it's all about building a micro ecosystem initially at a small micro level, and then spreading it globally. So recently, we did something with Oracle. It got published as well, which we grew into a global tool as well. So it's all about bringing those new technologies in to solve those sort of problems. And I've been doing that for a number of years now with the organization, and it's been a tremendous learning, and it's been a great organization and a great experience as well. There's a lot of great people in Petrofac, and I've really enjoyed it.
And you made an interesting switch in your career. I mean, as you said, and I couldn't agree more, digital transformation, regardless of the industry, the principles are the same.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting switch that you made from healthcare to oil and gas.
Yeah.
It literally doesn't have anything to do with each other.
One's saving people and the other one's like...
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Again, it goes, I think it's about, like, with me as a person, I always like to, this is going to sound weird, but I always believe in that philosophy that you should stress yourself to raise your level, and then you grow to that level, and then you move up. That's how you grow as a person. So oil and gas as an industry is synonymous with the region. It's always been an interest of mine. I've always wanted to get into the industry and understand how it works. But like you said, if you look at digital transformation, it's agnostic to industry. When I was in healthcare, it was all about our objective. Ultimately, one of our CEOs there, Mark Harrison, who's back in the US now, great leader. He often said that my job as a leader is actually to put healthcare out of business, which is weird, when you hear that. But ultimately, what he was saying was that we're trying to move away from reactive healthcare to proactive healthcare. So it's all about preventative maintenance. Likewise, in oil and gas, when you think of maintenance of assets, you want to move away from reactive PMM towards reactive maintenance towards proactive maintenance. You don't want to be doing these PMMs every 6 months to see if something's okay or not. We want to be assessing the asset from way ahead with intelligent insights and making sure the asset never goes down. So it's the same if you look at healthcare. We don't want any patients coming in. So it's about having your pulse on all the key performance indicators in a human, heart rate, chemicals, all that balance, and making sure that they stay healthy. Same with oil and gas. Take any industry, they're all pivoting towards proactive, predictive proactiveness is what they're trying to do, and that's all a complete data-driven industry. Put me in any industry, put any digital person in any industry, it's exactly the same. If they're selling or building or whatever they're doing.
No, for sure, yeah, and I couldn't agree more, and that's very nicely said. It's about, first of all, mapping the data sources and the data that when you collect and when you have those data on your hands.
Yeah.
It's just it's about how you're going to use it, and there is numerous ways to use it, and you can significantly impact your business.
Yes.
Okay, there is a standard question that we have for most of our digital transformation people, and we get all sorts of answers. But for you, how do you describe digital transformation? How do you explain digital transformation?
Really good question. And it's, like you said, it's very, very subjective. I view digital transformation as being something which takes an organization from a very reactive sort of organization into what you just mentioned, into a proactive organization at the predictive layer, with the predictive sort of tools. It's about, if you let's take retail as an example. If you think of retail as an example for the journey of a customer, in that industry, historically, it was customer comes in, and the whole premise was I need to get my customer to go around as many parts of my shop, and then throughout this journey, try and convince him or her to buy something. Now that industry's moved a step before and a step after. So what do I mean by that? So before the customers came to your shop, using data they've surrendered on Facebook as an example, they are given hints to buy a product. So now they've not even entered your shop, not even gone on your website, but you've now looked at that proactiveness of meeting them from before they've came in. Once they've completed their journey, you're still interacting with them. So throughout that journey, there's these new windows which you had no access to before into their personality, into who they are, both before and after, as well as during, which you never had. And secondly, I always talk about digital thread. So that thing, but which connects them through that end-to-end journey, I need to be able to have mapped everything about that journey. I need to have understood it. And then I need, to have garnered so many insights into who they are, so that my future targeting of that customer has a very high rate of success. And that it's becoming, everything's moving more personalized. So it's a mix of moving the organization, to answer your question, from this reactive organization to a proactive AI, machine learning, predictive driven business. And when I say customers, it's internal as well as external. And then you have that digital thread throughout the organization. So as an example of that, let's say there's a process within your business where I've got this Excel sheet, I email Uvok, you need to do A, B, C, D, and then I email, Ziad or someone else to do something else, and then they email me back. If you were to ask me, what is that, how's that process performing? I can't tell you, because it's in different things. Whereas if you have it on a platform, which we can talk about later, then I will know that complete end-to-end journey at any moment in time. And the idea is you're trying to delineate between value add work and non-value add work. And then what you do is you target the non-value add points and you reduce that to as little as possible. And then that allows you to unlock more value.
That's a very good answer, and I think we touched a lot of different topics that we can unpack one after another.
But it's a collage of all of them, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I like what you said in one of the previous interviews that I listened, when you split the digital transformation in two words, just the transformation and then digital on top.
Yes, yeah.
Digital on top of that.
Yeah, transformation's a constant. It's like you as an organization should always be in a state of change. That's the only constant.
Welcome to the Change Podcast.
Welcome to the Change Project. Great podcast. So like, if you're not in a state of constant change, someone else is. You'll get gazumped. You look at in the past, what would happen is you had the case of Netflix against Blockbuster, where Netflix were being very pioneering what they were doing, and it was a very slow crash. Everyone could see Blockbuster's models dying. Yeah. But for whatever reason, you could say egos or people just looking at numbers alone, it happened. And I think now in this day and age, that sort of crashing is going to be a lot more rapid. You're going to have, digital banks propping up, killing the market, like that. Services that will kill the supermarket. All of this is very, very, very quick. So you have to be constantly changing.
For sure, no. And there's probably a lot of misconceptions that people have about digital transformation. What are some of those that you passionately disagree with?
Yeah, really good question. I experienced that earlier in the week. One is like digital historically was synonymous with digital signage, lighting on the street and stuff. That historically, along with websites, just design of a website, that was digital. So I think people struggle with, if you move into an organization where they've not had that fusion of words before, they do struggle with it. So that's something I sort of disagree with. And I think the second element is that digital transformation is not about technology. It is about technology, but it's not about technology. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you go in and you say, we're going to do lots of robotic process automation, right? And this is what digital transformation is. Then from your communication perspective, you've told everyone digital transformation is equal to RPA as an example. And then let's take the example of where you don't apply RPA. If you're doing an ERP upgrade, okay, or you're doing a complete switch on any ERP program. So if I'm going from, say, SAP to Oracle as an example, I would not invest money in building bots on SAP right now if in 9 months Oracle was coming in. That's just a complete waste. So if in that ecosystem I'd said digital transformation is equal to RPA, and then the ERP crashed, guess what? All your credentials have gone out the window.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
you lost your job.
Yeah, exactly. I think those are the two sort of bed bugs I have.
yeah, that's a good answer. And can you bring us closer a bit to digital transformation and what's going on now in oil and gas industry? You're the first guest that we have the Change podcast talking about digital transformation, and now crossing that with oil and gas.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Quite a lot, to be honest with you. So like oil and gas and the industrial sector as a whole was quite far behind in terms of digital transformation adoption compared to airlines and retail. So if you think of it, oil and gas as an industry, it's sort of split. You've got downstream, upstream, midstream in terms of what they do. So there's the whole piece around extracting oil. So there's a whole industry there. So you've got people who have to search for oil, right? So there's a lot of artificial intelligence that's coming in, taking historical data on the type of rock, the region, all these different attributes, which will then give you a better success rate of where to extract from. Then you've got there's a whole group of people who will, I'm just trying to keep it simplified.
Sure.
There's a whole group of people that once you've actually found the site, you want to be able to map it on a 2D image so as to then send it out for these EPC companies to come in and then bid on building that facility. Petrofac being a leading player in that. So the 2D ones, there's a whole separate entity that does that. There's not a lot going on in that space. But then when you go from the giving that proposal to the EPC companies, there's a lot going on. So think of it this way. When I'm sending if I take ADNOC as an example, we're in the country, when they've got an area that they want to build an oil facility on, they will send these 2D images via those companies to these EPC companies to bid on these P&IDs.
Just a question, EPC stands for?
Engineering, procurement, construction.
The
three things that they do.
Sure.
So the engineering piece is the design of the the engineering, like the 3D facility, and then within engineering you've got different functions. You've got civil, piping, electrical, etc. Then you've got construction, the guys who are constructing it, and between the two you've got the supply chain going on. So procurement, which is that piece, and then construction. And then we have EPS as well, which is our services business. So that's for where you've already constructed a facility. Think of Serco, when they look after a building, but they're doing it for an oil and gas facility. So going back to that, so when the EPC company receives an engineering diagram, traditionally what those diagrams are called, they're called non-intelligent documents, meaning there's no embedded data. It's simply this 2D image that they've been getting. So what happens is they would take those diagrams, these engineering diagrams, and then they would extract all the material that it is expected to require. So the proposal team would use many thousands of hours to try and understand how much piping, how many pumps, all these elements that they would need. So take this document here. Imagine this was one of your engineering documents. I'd need a guy to be on it, or a lady, and there's a lot of good ladies in engineering and EPC companies, and they'd spend, say, 20-30 hours on it. Now what you've got is digital transformation where we're using computer vision with artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually extract that data for you. So like if I can extract 80% of the data from this sheet, as well as be able to tell Uvok that this 20% I could not extract, so that you know where to look at, in order to fill the gap, then I've saved you, say, 15, 20 hours. So that has two impacts. One is that you can put people onto better usage. Secondly, I can give my proposal back to the NOCs, the national oil companies, a proposal a lot quicker. So the aim is that if you can get to 90-95%, if I get a proposal, I have 10,000 documents in it, I can turn it around in like an hour. That'd just be amazing.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And I guess that multiplied by thousands of people who are doing this in the industry turns into thousands of hours saved that can be spent on something a lot better, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like obviously that's really important when you see the oil price. Oil price is coming down, margins are coming down. So companies like Petrofac and others have to be more efficient in that which they do, which is really important. Then some other examples for you. Let's talk about the service sector. So like if you look at EPS as an area, now they look after oil rigs or oil and gas facilities. Now that is a different set of people, and all they're doing, I mean I say all, but they do a lot, is they're maintaining that facility, which is highly complicated, and the industry as a whole is quite far behind. So like I'll give you a typical example. Imagine there's an oil rig site offshore,
Okay.
right? So there's a problem with it. Now what would happen is, imagine I'm the engineer, I get flown onto the rig. That's a cost.
Sure.
Right? There's a flight cost, me getting on there. Maybe the helicopter only goes out once you get 2 or 3 people that are needed for you to go out there. So I fly on there. When I get onto the facility, I need the plans. I need to know what exactly I'm looking at, how it's all interconnected. So this is the first problem. A lot of these are historically paper documents. And then if somebody's upgraded that plant, you might have the wrong plan. So you're looking at something, but the plan doesn't match.
Wow.
Then you've got like the parts. What parts do you have to order? Then what if I'm in front of that part that I'm fixing, and I can't fix it? Then I need to call someone more experienced. I'll call you, Vuk. But Vuk, you're still on shore. So now I need another helicopter,
chopper,
right? So if you look at it, let's think about it. I've flown on. I've not been able to find the right plans, so I've wasted several hours.
Sure.
I've tried to fix it, I've not been able to fix it. Then I've flown you on to fix it, you fix it. And then, like that all compounds. So now what you have from a digital transformation perspective is that they have digital twins. So digital twins are the latest 3D representation of the plant, where you can zoom into this 3D representation of your plant to the millimeter. And you can click on a part, and any part of it, and it'll bring up all the information. There'll be a tag that connects to your asset management system, and it pulls all the data, and it can pull in everything that you've done on that part as well, which is phenomenal, right?
Wow.
And then imagine I'm on there and I'm like, Vuk, this part I can't fix it. Now what you have is, they call it connected worker with the cameras. On my helmet, I'll have a camera, a high definition one. So when I'm looking at the part, I'll say, can't fix this part. I think it's this. Can you refer to this part? And I'll have the plan of it on my palm, on my iPad or whatever I've got. You in a control tower can log in and see what I'm looking at. And then you can live stream what I'm looking at. And even if your bandwidth is poor, I can send you that video, over time.
Sure.
And then you can receive it. You can then tell me what to do, and I'll save money. So there's a lot of great efficiencies that are going on there, and Petrofac's done some amazing stuff there as well. Yeah.
That's super fun. Yeah, I mean, who would understand that industry? Obviously, it's not something that publicly is talked about that much. It's not a fancy industry really to talk about, but it's interesting. You see healthcare and telemedicine, and then oil and gas, and this basically
it's the same principle,
concept,
isn't it? Yeah, it's the same concept, and yeah.
So I'm curious to understand you. Obviously, there is the whole process and the operations in oil and gas industry are quite complex, but what are the biggest problems that you're facing that might be solved with digital?
I would say we can look at the two facets of what we just described. So like if I look at the service sector of what you do, the EPS world, then I would say it's like, we're getting paid to keep an asset up and running, right? So if that asset goes down, then the owner of the asset loses money. There's penalties, right? So there's so much potential in that area for proactive maintenance. So measuring ahead of time factors which could fail on that oil rig or that oil and gas facility, and proactively monitoring it. So
if I just quickly may
Sure.
step in just to clarify for myself first and then for the audience as well, but for the oil and gas industry, the biggest threat and where the most money is being lost if the rig, for example, stops working, right? Stops getting
so if
the
you-
oil out.
Yeah,
They
like-
worked around the clock, right?
yeah, they
24/7.
do. Yeah.
So if there is a failure
Yeah.
on the rig,
Yeah.
and
You're not pumping any oil.
You're not pumping any oil
Yeah,
for
and
2 hours. That equals hundreds,
it's-
thousands of millions.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Directly.
Yeah, depending on the oil rig. Yeah.
So basically, the biggest possible threats to this business is if you manage to prevent all of the failures, you won.
Yeah.
Right? These are
I mean, you said the biggest threat. I'd say COVID at the moment, but aside from that one,
yeah, exactly.
if someone can solve that, yeah, like for an already built facility, the biggest loss maker is that if the facility goes down. If it goes down, you can easily transcribe what that money, translate that, what that money means. So, we live in like we talked about at the start, we live in a time where, we're used to, they call it preventative maintenance, which is simply every 3 months or 6 months, you'll oil a part, check it, right? But really, we want to be in the proactive maintenance. So using IoT sensors across the facility, that data being live streamed, and then you don't even need a human to analyze the data. You can have artificial intelligence on top to then highlight and warn you, Vuk, that you better get down onto that oil rig on this part because its pressure is abnormally rising. So you proactively then fix that. So that's the service.
Before it happens. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And then on the in the construction side of oil and gas.
So that's before the actual facility has been built, right?
Yeah, exactly. They call it greenfield. Obviously before it's been built, and then obviously you got brownfield as well, which could be like existing sites which you want to build more on. So like in the greenfield sort of EPC side of things, where you've got sort of massive potential to make monetary and efficiency gains, is one we talked about, which was the engineering piece, where it's all about design, isn't it? So if you can extract data at that first point, that first juncture, your response rate to the NOC could be a lot more rapid than anyone else and more accurate. So imagine it takes 6 months before you get it down to a month.
Wow.
That's phenomenal. And if I'm an NOC and I've got 6 companies and one of them is getting back to me within a month, I want to deal with them.
Of course.
And they're accurate in what they do. And then obviously they're also talking about in the engineering phase, being able to have software and digital solutions that proactively convert the 2D into a 3D image for you. It can take a plan at a 2D level and then construct it into a 3D level. On
a press of a button, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. In the procurement phase, it's really hard in EPCs, and because you are working with thousands of suppliers, and each of those suppliers is having its own challenge in how efficient or digitally agile they are. So, it's how do you get them all singing off the same hymn sheet? So it's that whole sort of mix of when you buy stuff, if you buy stuff too early and your construction team gets on site and the plans change, that's going to cost you because you've already ordered something. Then if you order early and you order in bulk, you can get better discounts. And if you can order across your multiple projects that are going on in the EPC world, then you can get even greater economies of scale. So that's from procurement. From a construction phase, the biggest sort of areas of, I think, value would be whereby that whole composer of an orchestra. If you think in the orchestra, you've got the different players, right? So if you're thinking of a construction site, you've got subcontractors who need to be on the site. You've got health and safety people. You've got the material from procurement that's arriving. You've got the tools that you're trying to build on that site as well. Marrying up all of those, if you can make that as lean as possible, you're going to extract so much value. So like if you can, like for example, I'll give you an example. If I bring on a team of specialists to, I've external set of specialists, they've flown in, I'm paying them a lot of money, right? And my material's not there, or my tool is not there. That has an opportunity cost.
Of of course.
I've levied off this project against another project. I've decided to send Bob the Builder and 10 of his,
Yeah.
we had to pick Bob, and his team to do that, and they're not productive, and I could have used them on a different site, which did have all the things ready.
And bring them in a bit later, just on time.
Yeah,
when they,
exactly, you got it. So like that whole marrying piece, really it's a data problem.
Who's playing the role of composer in the whole industry?
Well, you know. I think to be fair, everyone's trying to do it. Everyone's trying to get there. And I think Petrofac's done a fantastic job. We've done, we've been pretty early on in this, and brought all of that in quite early.
Nice.
And we're doing it, yeah.
And all right, we were talking about shiny future business models and how the oil and gas should work at one point and be super productive. What are the biggest barriers now and problems that the industry is facing to get there? Like what's preventing you to be there tomorrow?
The demand shock right now with with the COVID. It's just been a demand shock. So if you think across the globe, I don't know if you've looked much into oil. So oil as a product, you get different types of oil, right? So you might see this sweet oil, this sour oil. That talks about the composition of the oil. Okay, so in the oil sector, the Middle East has the best sort of the easiest of extraction, and some of the best composition of oil. So that's always in high demand. Then you've got places where the oil is a bit more sour and its usage is less wide compared to, say, the Middle East. Then you've got the fracking players who basically use pressure and chemicals to extract oil from where they couldn't before. Okay, like from old oil rigs, and how that works. So like generally speaking, the demand is pretty stable across the globe, and all the factors that feed into it, like airlines, travel, you've got factory production, generation of energy. Now with this demand shock, people are not traveling. That's had a big factor on this. You've got economy shock as well. So national oil companies are not bringing in new sort of investments. That's been the biggest existential threat. And then at the same time, you've got the whole focusing on sustainable energy. Where it was too expensive before, we're finding that the costs are coming down. So you think of electrical, you think of wind, that's going to grow massively. So I think from an EPC side of things and EPS side of things, they're going to start pivoting more towards these renewable energy sector.
So what's the strategy then going forward? How to adjust and adapt?
It's about being firstly, I think it's about fixing your basics. That doesn't go away. So like what we just talked about, across the different value points of where we can extract more value. So focusing in on those different facets and making sure that I'm actually performing at the most efficient way possible will keep you ahead of the competition. Okay, and secondly, practically speaking, if you look at a lot of these companies, they are pivoting towards renewables. So if you look at a construction EPC company, they are starting to focus more on renewables and starting to invest more there as well. The other things they're doing is they're trying to become more carbon neutral as they're constructing the projects as well. So whether they're constructing it, how they do it, bringing that carbon footprint down as well. So it's a mix of things, and it's all new territory.
Well, I guess like what happened to airlines and airlines around the world, and if you look back 40-50 years ago, the margins were pretty high for all of them, but then the prices of those tickets didn't significantly change since then, and the margins went down, and it's more of the battle of operational excellence now than anything else. So how can they improve their operations to a level where they can still maintain their margins at some point? So I guess with oil and gas as well is how can you now introduce technology, among other things, to bring your operations to a level of almost complete excellence, so that you can maintain your margins and profits in the future, because the demand is dropping, right?
You're completely right. And like whatever sector you look at, that sort of personalization of journey, whether it's at an individual level with airlines or healthcare, from having your mobile app at home, having your stats go up, even heart pacemakers data feeding in, to like a large EPC where their relationship with the NOCs or the IOCs is an excellent relationship. And things like being able to turn around your engineering in a quick time, that's part of it, amongst other things. Yeah, so I completely agree.
And in your day-to-day job and your responsibilities as a digital transformation leader here and before as well in other industries, what are the biggest problems that you're facing in implementing the strategies that you have on your mind?
That's a really good question.
I know.
You usually ask good questions, don't you? I find that it's a few things. I find that one is actually people and culture, which surprises people. What I mean by that is your basics. Like, if you do not have leadership buy-in to do a transformation program, then you're just going to have active agitators who will ensure that you have a downfall. Number two, that's linked to that, is understanding as a digital leader what is the perception that my business users have of what I'm doing. Right? So I'll give you an example. If we think data science analytics, something I'm passionate about, always love statistics and Python and those sort of things. If my customer thinks his or her output is simply 100 dashboards on Power BI and that's it, then for me that's a problem. Because he or she won't care what's before it. Like, my ambition and my goal is that all my data is untouched. It goes into my data lake. I build all the intelligence on top of that, and then my customer, the business, or the customers externally, have that data in live format on the palm of their hand, and without me telling them what's going on, I want them to get insights from artificial intelligence and machine learning. That's a completely different proposition to someone who just wants 100 dashboards. Because before that dashboard was created, maybe somebody's taken the data out, messing around with the data, not messing around, but massaging the data, pumping it into my system, and then my end user thinks he or she's getting live data, but he's not, or she's not.
That's not live, yeah.
No, it's not, because there's a little hamster in the background still doing their work. So I think what's really important is making sure people understand what it is that you're trying to do on that journey. The second, I think the second sort of from a people perspective also is, we live in a Google age. Like in the past it used to be, who could remember everything? It'd be a memory context and a bit of intelligence in combining it all together. But today on YouTube, you can Google any topic, find a 5-minute video on it, and suddenly you're an expert. So I've seen in organizations where you mentioned digital transformation, they think cloud, right? We need a SaaS project, a SaaS product, and you're like, wow, okay, this business stakeholder is really clued on. So then what they'll do is they'll suddenly go out and find 20 different SaaS products, right? Where I have to pay AMCs, I have to have an army to maintain them. Whereas my vision would be, no, I want it all on a platform, one single platform, whether it's Microsoft or Oracle, who I pay, and then I build all my key processes on top of that platform. But I'm only paying for it once, and I've only got one throat to choke, and that's got economies of scale. I mean, you can have a few platforms, but that's a Google problem where people within the business will start finding products, taking it to their boss's boss, then your boss contacting you and going, yo, Qasir, can you get this one done? And you're like, no, that doesn't tie in with our overall strategy. So understanding people and understanding what they think and what their perception of you is probably the most fundamental part of any transformation journey.
No, I couldn't agree more, and I love the answer, because I hear the word empathy in everything that you're saying. Is truly connecting and empathizing with your customers, whether those are internal or external customers, and then
Yeah.
delivering them something that really resonates with them.
Yeah, exactly.
A tailored solution. What's your how do you approach solving these barriers and these problems in organizations? These are usually large organizations where you have all of this bureaucracy and leadership buying in or not buying in, and
Yeah.
like how do you do it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you have to take the time and effort to build a relationship with people, and genuinely try and understand what their pains are. Nobody likes somebody coming to their house and telling them what to do. Nobody likes that. That's just human nature. So taking the time out to understand what challenges they face is important. At the same time, you have to set out expectations from bottom up. So when you come in, you say that I generally have 3 phases, and I often talk about it. Your first phase is always fix your basics. You have to fix your house first. If I'm coming to somebody's house and the roof is leaking, there's no point in me putting a new bed set in there.
yeah,
Do you see?
that's
So
a
like,
good one,
yeah. So like, what I always do first is I try and understand infrastructure and technology, applications, security, data integrity, like we talked about earlier. If somebody taking data out, messing around with it, and people. I want to understand where are we with all of those facets. Some of them you just pay an external entity like Microsoft or someone else to come in, do an audit and say, Vok, all your technology is out of support. That's a quick fix of items. People one, you have to take the time out, map it all out. So you have to fix all your basics, identify people in the business who are champions, who can, help you on the journey. Your second phase then becomes, so once your basics are fixed, before any digital transformation journey begins, and you're telling all your stakeholders this, you're saying first 3 to 6 months, this is the focus. The second focus is not on funky technology, right? Not on, because everyone thinks, right, they're going to bring a robot in and a flying drone and all this, and it's really funky, but no, everything has to go back to basics. You need good governance. Whenever we're doing a project, you need to understand what is it that I'm trying to benefit, in terms of my business today. So your second phase for me is all about platforms, digital platforms. You're taking all the common high volume, high usage things that are going on in that organization, putting them onto platforms, and then putting automation on top. Like
when you say platforms, just for the sake of audience understanding, what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is like these platforms that allow you to build workflows. Okay, so if we think what famous ones out there, call out for Oracle and Microsoft, but there's some.
This is not a commercial.
This is not commercial, but I'll take commercial.
You have to pay for that.
Yeah, but like for Oracle, they've got Unifier, they've got Apex. These are platforms. In Microsoft, they've got Microsoft Automate, and there's another one as well, Power Apps.
Yeah.
And what they allow you to do is they allow you to, let's say you want to create a procurement process. Right now you're emailing people, you're doing this. You can build that all on the platform. And the reason it's on the platform is that every time you work on that process, it's captured. There's a data stamp against it. That information later on will let you know how efficient you are in what you're doing. You'll suddenly realize that whenever I deal with this vendor, it's always delayed. Delivery is never on time, and we're always having a lot of, returns of goods and all of that. So platforms and addressing today's problems is really important. Within there you've got ERP, which isn't really digital, but it needs to be done. So that's your second phase.
Okay.
So if you think about your first phase has been, I'm fixing everything that should have been fixed and I'm protecting it against any security hacks or whatever. The second phase is I'm impacting as many people as I can in today's company in what they're doing today. So I'm taking them off these random Excels, random emails, in terms of doing work, and I'm making their work easier. They're not having to do non-value add activity work where they're saying, oh, I did this at this time and then I did this. It's all on the platform. Then your third phase is, and this third phase, by the way, Vok, you can start it early as well, is all about innovation and pioneering. So if you think about phase 1 and 2, they're existing things that are going on out in the world. You're just not doing them.
Sure.
Right? So by doing that, you're speeding up.
Sure.
The third phase is I now want to innovate and be a pioneer in my sort of company area whether it's retail, healthcare, whatever it is. So here, what you want to do is you want to introduce the concept of a minimal viable product or a proof of concept. So for example, let's say you are creating great podcasts. Let's say you now want to strategize selling, products on here which is linked to some delivery service that, somebody can press on the button and stuff. Rather than spending 10 million dirhams to do that, what you could do is you could try it on a very small set of people in a controlled manner at a small budget. You quickly do it, and then you meet with your steerco, as in the minds who are going to give you the money, the pockets who are going to give you the money, and then you say that, look, this is good for our organization. Then they will say, okay, why don't you now expand it a bit more, This way you avoid mega failures. So you're always throughout this journey only building this product up until it's got value, and it's all done in an agile way. As soon as you realize the idea is no good, you stop it. If you think of, I think it's Google who every week they allow engineers and people who work in Google, I think it's half a day for these little pet projects.
If not even a day.
Yeah, or a day. I think it's like 20% of the time or something. Yeah, you're right. So same thing with us. Like, you might want to take something out there in the market, not commit to all of it, but do a proof of concept and see, is it going to add value to me? So that's my three sort of pillars really that sit together. And really you have to start with fix the basics, then start with bringing value to most of your organization. You notice I've not even mentioned technology to you.
Yeah.
We were talking about, and this is a transformation principle. And then underlying all of this work, you need great governance. So when an idea comes, the problem with a lot of organizations is that if someone's got political clout, then it's always about who shouts the loudest, who's got the biggest clout. So I might bring a problem to the table and say, this is the biggest problem, you need to fix it. And I shout. And then Vuk, the sponsor, give me all the money. But the data behind it actually says this problem that Case is raising is only 1% of what we do. So this reasoning as to why you do something should be a data-driven cycle of, understanding how big the problem is, what are the benefits it's going to drive. So before you start, what are the benefits? Whilst you're building it, keep asking that question, am I really going to get value out of this? After you completed it, track the benefits. You don't need to do it in a fancy program or software from anywhere else. You can build it on a platform or put it in Excel if you want to, and just track the benefits. By doing that, what will happen is people will trust you that what you're doing is right for the organization. So that's my ecosystem of any transformation.
No, that's nicely said. I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the better answers that I received.
Well,
But I think it's about measurement, really. If you don't measure, especially when you're talking about something intangible as innovation and now digital and transformation, where quite often organization is looking at you and then questioning, really. No, I mean, it's cool, but does it really deliver results? Or, I'm used to what I do. I think it's great doing it as I'm doing it now, and I bet that in oil and gas industry there is a lot of people who've been in the industry since 1990s, and they have their way of doing things.
They do, and to be honest, to be fair, they bring a lot of value, and to be fair on them, I'm sure they've seen a lot of these transformation,
not delivering,
or not delivering in the past. Like they'll be like, oh, here we go, it's the emperor with his clothes again with something new, and it's like this endless cycle. And then the other thing I think with COVID is that because the catalyst and energy is there for change, people who don't quite understand that technology can in a way be abused, in the sense that like somebody like me coming in, not that I would, or a digital leader, let's say a bad digital leader because I'm one of the good ones, he comes in or she comes in, she gets the budget and she drives the decision making process. Maybe she or he wants to do something really funky, like bring in a massive human robot or something like this, and nobody questions it because they think it's digital, we should be doing it.
Yeah, of course.
And then you just blow all your budget and it's delivered nothing.
Yeah, and I think
many examples
you made
that.
A good introduction when you said talked about MVPs and phasing it up and starting small, so you prove the concept and you get some positive results before you commit yourself to invest bigger budgets. It's a good introduction to the whole topic of failures of large digital transformation initiatives and projects that failed big time.
Yeah.
but they didn't, made a break halfway through, or not halfway through, at the very beginning, to see whether this is even a good idea, or to validate the idea. They didn't phase it up. And then pronouncing that this whole thing doesn't work. Digital transformation sucks. Excuse my French, but like, it doesn't
it's
work.
It's not French, but no, you're right. And like, if you think about why digital transformations fail, we talked about those three facets. You had fix your basics, you had bring in the platforms, and then at the end, I talked about innovative technology, pioneering technology. And even then, I didn't say to you, invest fully in there. Bring it in a controlled way. Right, because money is a scarce resource. We don't have deep pockets to burn all of that. So what often happens in terms of failure is that this strategic view, and I mean, I'm talking about it, but you only ever learn about it once you've done it and you've got the war scars. And I've got quite a few of those. So like, what will happen is somebody will come in and they'll jump into the third facet immediately. So I'll give you an example. We talked about offshore oil and gas. So I come in and I said to you, Vuk, right, we're going to bring in this whole camera thing, HD, high definition videos,
which is sexy. It sounds cool.
You're like, yes, I'm bought in. I get the idea. I see where you're going with this. And I've not actually looked at my underlying infrastructure,
whether it might support it.
It might be a VSAT connection of 1 megabyte, which can't support that. And then I'm there with my funky camera, and I've actually collapsed all my other IT systems that need it. So that's an example. So like, it has to be a strategic thing, and you can bring in consultancies to help you to do that. But I don't think it needs these super expensive ones. It just needs. You'll often find that if you approach the problem how I've described it to you, you have the brains within the organization. It just needs a good composer, to use the earlier example, to help you bring it together. And you're de-risking the program by focusing on the right things at the right time. That sequential sequencing of what you do in the whole ecosystem is really important.
Yeah. Nicely said.
Thank you.
Said. Before we wrap it up, I have one last question for you, and it's off the topic of oil and gas and digital transformation. So where do you see yourself in? Usually ask 10 years, but when I ask 10 years, I get the answers is not that exciting. So I'm going to ask you, where do you see yourself in 40 years?
I thought you might say 5 years, and I was thinking
40 years.
I was thinking about all those people 5 years ago. Where do you see yourself in 5 years with COVID? In 40 years, where do I see myself? Back in Yorkshire.
Exactly.
A plug for Skipton. I don't know, to be honest with you. That's I think maybe on the moon.
You don't have your retirement vision plan, no?
No, like I think with myself, like the way I am as an individual, I find that I have these high level goals, in terms of learning, and like if you look at my career, I've done transformation. That's my constant all the way through, and all the way through I've had to learn new languages, in terms of IT, new programs, but the concept hasn't changed. So I absolutely love doing transformation. So I think I'd be in that facet, and hopefully I think I'd be retired by then. And doing
a triple Ironman in a month, huh?
You laugh. You joked about it earlier, but I read about this gentleman the other day I think he's an 85-year-old Japanese triathlete who did the Ironman, which is absolutely amazing.
It's crazy.
It ends with a marathon.
Yeah. No, it's
there's no
crazy.
Excuse for it. I think I was reading he started when he was 55, and he just consistently ebbed away and did it, and it is amazing, reading around that. And there's so many cases like that. So I think none of us have an excuse, that I'm too busy, or I'm too old, or I'm not healthy. If we take these step changes, fix the basics, we can get to a better place.
It's applicable to your own life. These 3 phases are applicable to your own life. That's it.
That's what life's about, isn't it? It's the rabbit and tortoise story that everyone wants. Everything, we live in a society where it's immediate gratification or immediacy of everything, but you'll find that those who ebb away daily, they're the ones who get further in life. So definitely.
Sure. Definitely. Qasir, thanks for coming.
It's been amazing. Thank you for having me on here, Vuk.
I enjoyed every second of it.
Same here.
Thanks for staying with us until the end. I hope that you picked up some good inspiration. I learned a bit more about oil and gas industry. I did. I wasn't that aware of what's going on. We're going to continue discussion after the cut, and then maybe record a second episode after a couple of months.
Return of the Jedi or something.
Exactly. So guys, if you like what we're doing here, I hope you do. Please like and subscribe. If you have any comments, please share them with us and we'll make sure to reply. And we'll see you in the next episode coming next month. Thanks for staying with us until the end and have a great day. Bye.